Policies that affect your life. Today, we're going to devote the show to a U.S. representative who lives in Torrance, but was born about 7,000 miles away. I'm talking about Congressman Ted Lieu. We'll hear what it was like growing up as the only Asian kid, how watching his parents struggle to make it in America shaped him, why he got into politics, and his thoughts on the Trump administration. So you currently live in Torrance. Is that where you're originally from?
No, my story is the same as many people in America or their parents or their grandparents. I'm an immigrant, and when my parents looked at a map of America, they said we're going to Cleveland.
Okay,
So
why Cleveland?
So my dad first came, and he actually started as a dishwasher at various restaurants, and he had some family who had settled in Cleveland, and so they said, why don't you come out here? And so that's how it happened.
And what country?
My mom and I later came when I was about 3.5 years old.
Oh, okay, sorry. And what country did they immigrate from?
Taiwan.
Wow, okay. And so you came over here as a toddler.
That's correct. So I was about 3.5. We started off living in the basement of a person's home. My parents would go to flea markets and sell gifts and jewelry to make ends meet. And eventually they opened one gift and jewelry store in a shopping center. And then they worked hard 7 days a week, saved their money, opened one gift and jewelry in a shopping mall. And my brother and I would help watch that store because they didn't have to pay us. And then eventually they expanded over 6 stores. So in my mind, they achieved the American dream. They went from being poor to a home, gave my brother and I an amazing education. My brother is still a doctor now, and my parents still remind me of that. And it's also one reason I joined the Air Force on active duty. I believe I can never give back to America everything this amazing country has given to my family. And it's one reason I'm in politics, to keep this dream open for people who want to work hard and succeed.
Wow. And now take me back. So what year did your parents immigrate here?
So I am, my birth date, so it would have been around early 1970s.
Okay. Now, in terms of building up all those stores, like you said, you got to see that growing up. How long did it take for them to really build up that business empire?
Many years. And you go from a flea market to one little store to then one little store in a shopping mall. That took many years to get there.
And what was it like to see that growing up, your parents working so hard to build this business?
It was, in hindsight, amazing what my parents did. I can't imagine going to a foreign country, not really speaking English or speaking the language very well, and then not having a lot of money and then trying to make it. I probably wouldn't be able to do that. And so what my parents did was pretty amazing.
And for you, what was it like growing up in Cleveland?
Well, sort of the only thing I knew, so I didn't have much to compare it to. So I learned to operate the cash register at a very early age. I would sell gifts and jewelry to customers. So I learned a lot about, jade,
okay,
about other sorts of things. I also, growing up in Cleveland, really sort of liked the Midwest. I thought many of the folks were quite nice. So during the holiday season, our neighbors would bring over kielbasa and sauerkraut, and we lived mostly in a Polish and Italian neighborhood. I thought everybody was Catholic, by the way, growing up.
Okay. Did you grow up Catholic?
I am Catholic.
Okay.
I think that's actually one reason why. I also went to a Jesuit high school.
Interesting.
But we also did experience some discrimination along the way. So, folks would use racial slurs against me. I was made to not feel like I was part of the community. I was only Asian American in my elementary school.
The only one?
The only one.
Wow.
And then people sometimes would throw eggs at our house. We sometimes would get our tires slashed on our car. So it was a little bit uncomfortable growing up.
And how's that shaped kind of your role in politics now? Because you've experienced this, and I imagine some of the legislation that you write, you're really trying to be, you're a voice for other people. So how does that have shaped some of your views and the work you do?
So America is an exceptional country. It is one reason I joined the military is also because of that. And I continue to believe that we every day try to evolve to become a more perfect union. But I am much more sensitive now to marginalized communities, to people who are discriminated against. And it was very troubling to me when, for example, the President of the United States told some minorities that they should go back to their country. That's a very hurtful thing to say. People still say that to me. They said that to me when I was a kid. They said that to me when I was in college. They've said that to me even now. And the only reason they say that to me, that I should go back to China or Korea or Japan, because people get confused, right?
Right.
Is because of my skin color. They wouldn't say that to me if I was white. And so it is a racial slur, and people should stop saying that.
Wow. And now, going back to your military service, what inspired you to join the military, and what was that reaction like from your parents?
So I really wanted to serve the country because I think America gave my family this amazing opportunity, and it's a story that's replicated across generations all over the United States, and not many countries can do this the way America can. So that's one reason. The other reason is I wanted to see the world, and my first base of assignment was at Anderson Air Force Base in Guam. It's a place I probably would never go to, but for the Air Force, and I had an amazing experience there.
And the Air Force in particular, not the Navy or Army?
So I applied to multiple branches. I don't have 20/20 vision, and so many of these branches disqualified me because of my eyesight. And the Air Force figured out that, you know, if you're not going to fly, we don't really care how blind you are.
Oh, good to know. And what was your parents' reaction when you told them you were going to join?
They were a little puzzled. So that puzzled them, as well as me wanting to be in elected politics. That sort of puzzled them, but now they're very happy of where I am.
And why were they puzzled? Were they just confused about what you were doing?
So I remember my mom called me after I got elected to state assembly, and she said, you know, there's no job security. And I was like, yeah, that's true. There is no job security. It's a 2-year term. And then something that was interesting, the ethnic media would ask me a question that I always found fascinating. It was along the lines of, why would you leave your job in the private sector to run for government office? Like, they didn't quite understand. So it is interesting that some in the community still don't quite understand.
And what were you doing in the private sector?
I was in the general counsel's office of UBS Payne Weber.
Okay. Were you like a lawyer, or?
Yes, I'm also a recovering lawyer.
Up next, why Congressman Ted Lieu left the security. Welcome back to In Focus, California. I'm Renee Ng. Now let's continue the discussion with U.S. Congressman Ted Lieu, this time turning our attention to his experience in the Air Force and why he decided to run for public office. What was being in the Air Force like?
It was amazing. I'm still in the reserves. I'm a colonel at the Space and Missile Systems Center at Los Angeles Air Force Base in El Segundo. In my first active duty assignment at Anderson Air Force Base in Guam, I was made Chief of Operations Law, and we had an operation happen. It was called Pacific Haven, and basically the Air Force, we went into northern Iraq, extracted thousands and thousands of Kurds, and eventually got them to Guam. It's because Saddam Hussein was going to roll in there and kill them. And it was amazing to watch this happen. I remember watching the Kurds get off these planes. They were wearing 7 layers of clothing, bringing everything they had. It was 90 degrees weather there and humid. And we basically housed them. We would have different agencies come in and make sure that none of them were Saddam loyalists or spies and so on. And then for most of them, we took them to the United States. And I thought, you know, not many countries would have done this either. If Saddam had gone and killed them, it probably would have been a one-day international story. Folks in the U.S. might not even know it. But we risked personnel and treasure to do this because the Kurds had helped us oppose Saddam Hussein. We felt we owed them a duty. And so we did this, and now the Kurds are some of our strongest allies still in the world.
And going through that, did that leave an impression on you, having that experience?
It made me believe in America even more. And then I had this amazing experience where I had a chance to go to what was then a different state in Iraq, Iraqi Kurdistan, and I met with President Barzani, and he met with us for about 45 minutes. I was in the state legislature at the time, and then as I was leaving, this young staffer comes after me because he read my bio, so I was in Pacific Haven. He said he was a little child getting off one of those planes in Guam, and he said we saved his life and that of his family. He eventually went to America to get educated and then went back to Iraqi Kurdistan to help the government. So it's pretty amazing to see it.
That's kind of full circle. Yeah, that's amazing. Now, in terms of politics or national politics, what made you want to get into that arena?
So climate change was one of the major reasons. In California, I was a co-author of AB 32, the landmark Global Warming Solutions Act. It has put California on the map in terms of leading, in terms of climate change. But it's also clear to me that we can completely go dark tomorrow, use no energy in California, and won't matter very much because this is a global problem. So you need America to do what California has done and the rest of the world to do what California has done, and then we have a chance at fighting climate change. So that's why I wanted to go to Congress to try to enact climate change laws. And the first bill I've introduced was to take California's model and try to make it national.
All right. Now, in terms of your parents, I have to ask, now that you're congressman, are they still as puzzled by what you do, or do they understand more now?
They're very happy that I'm in my position and speaking for various communities across America.
Okay, great. Now, what is it like to be a minority in Congress, especially as an Asian American? What's that experience like?
So one of the cool things about Congress, as well as the U.S. military, is people sort of view you as a member of the military or as a member of Congress. So I don't experience that kind of discrimination when I'm in Congress. I do still experience it, you know, on Twitter and on Facebook and other social media. I do get some pretty racist and negative comments, but in the House of Congress, I don't experience that.
And how important do you think it is for minorities to have representation in government?
I think it's extremely important, and I'm very pleased that right now the United States Congress and the House of Representatives has the most diverse body in history. We have now the first two Native American women elected to the U.S. House. We have actually a historic number of women in the U.S. House. We have the first Somali American in the U.S. House. We really have diversified the House, and I think that's a good thing.
Okay, great. And let's talk about, this is kind of a fun one. What is one thing that you want people to know about you?
That I really like science fiction. And the reason I say that is you can get a lot of good ideas from science fiction. And if you look at, for example, our satellites, if you read the literature, it was a science fiction author that sort of first came up with that idea many decades ago.
Up next, why Congressman Ted Lieu has changed his mind about President Donald Trump. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Renee Ng. Let's resume the discussion with Congressman Ted Lieu and his insights into the state of affairs in Washington, D.C. What do you think about how the Trump administration is running things?
So I didn't set out to resist this president. After the November 2016 elections, I issued a public statement that went something like this. It said that America is an exceptional country. One of the reasons that we are a great country is our peaceful transfer of power. Donald Trump won the Electoral College. We should give him a chance to govern. And then a few months later, I concluded I was wrong. And it was because he was systematically attacking the institutions of our democracy. He was attacking the legitimacy of the judiciary. He was attacking the free press. He was stifling internal dissent. And then he was lying at a rate I've never seen another human being lie. And when that happens, it makes it hard for the American people to know what is true or what is false. That's a first step towards authoritarianism. And I concluded I'm just going to start resisting him because I thought it was a danger to our republic.
And what's your biggest fear with having this president in office?
That people start not understanding what are actual facts, what is true, what is false, and you have the president routinely saying things that are just simply not true, and then people start believing things that are not true, and then it's hard to have a democracy when we can't even agree on the same set of facts.
Interesting. Okay. And going back to some of the legislation you mentioned earlier, what do you think about the rollbacks that the Trump administration has done, especially when it comes to the environment? What are your thoughts on that?
It's very, very harmful to our environment. The administration recently announced they're going to roll back clean water regulations. Why would you do that? Why would we not want clean water? They have rolled back a lot of climate solutions that the Obama administration have put in. And if you look at all the data, it's very clear that climate change is happening. It's now a crisis. We should really be calling it a climate crisis. And if we don't take carbon and methane out of the air soon, we're going to reach a point where we cannot reverse many of the worst effects, such as more extreme hurricanes, more frequent hurricanes, more extreme wildfires, hotter climates in different parts of the world, and that's all going to really cause economic harm and make the quality of life much worse.
Okay. And in terms of what you mentioned earlier with the Trump administration, some of the disturbing things you see, is there one that really comes to mind? You mentioned, for example, some of the lying that you've seen. What else comes to mind?
Well, you know, telling minorities to go back to the country, that's really pretty bad. That's just straight up racist. But you also have harmful policies, such as the president diverting military construction funding to his wall. And you had the Air Force recently put out a study, actually, that reporters got a hold of that showed that there would be 51 projects that were impacted that would have a national security harm to it. So you do have the president not only doing something that's likely unconstitutional, which is taking appropriations that Congress specifically put in for specific military projects and then diverting them to a wall that Congress specifically chose not to fund. You also have it harming our national security. So it's both likely unconstitutional and harming our national security.
So based on some of Trump's immigration policies, do you think he's racist?
I don't know if Donald Trump is racist or not. I can't see under his heart. I know he says racist things.
Okay. All right. Well, now, what do you predict for 2020?
So one of the great things about America is we have presidential elections every 4 years, and the American people get to decide who they want as their commander-in-chief and as their president next November.
Yeah, all right. And do you have any predictions for who's going to be on the 2020 Democratic ticket?
I do not. I have endorsed Kamala Harris. She's a friend of mine. She's an amazing and relentless campaigner. She's tough, smart, and progressive. And so we'll see what happens during elections.
Great. Okay, a couple more questions before I let you go. When we talk about some of the things that this administration has done, how long do you think it will take to undo that?
So the administration has done a lot of harm in terms of rolling back executive branch actions that the Obama administration had put in, but they haven't done very much to change actual laws. And that's because Democrats in the House have been pushing back on that. So a lot of these actions can be reversed rather quickly if you had a Democratic president that won next year. In terms of laws, the only major law that Donald Trump got through was the tax law that ended up hurting many Californians and raising taxes on a lot of middle-class families, with over 90% of the benefits going to the top 1%.
Okay. And in terms of what the Trump administration has done so far, what do you think about its impact on the psyche of the American people?
So that's a very interesting question. For example, when I was in law school, I never heard of the Emoluments Clause. No one ever taught me about that. And now half America knows what the Emoluments Clause is. So it's caused a lot of education about the U.S. Constitution to the American people. I think that's a good thing. And we see the president engaging in a lot of behavior that, to me, looks flat out unconstitutional, such as profiting from his business empire while he's president. And you have all these foreign officials staying at Trump properties. You now have the U.S. military staying at Trump properties. And all that money is going to the Trump organization, and it's helping the president and his family. The whole Emoluments Clause was put in by the framers to stop that. And so now the American people know about it, so they're learning more about the Constitution, so that's good. It, I think, has harmed America's standing in the world. If you look at our allies and other people around the world, they no longer trust Donald Trump because he lies so much. It's one reason he has not been able to get a deal with China, no deal with North Korea, no deal with the Taliban. And so you don't see him being able to make these deals because other people don't know if they can trust him.
And there's been a lot of chatter about impeachment. What are your predictions for that?
So I'm on the House Judiciary Committee. We're in an impeachment inquiry, so we're deciding whether or not we should pass out articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. We'll be holding these hearings, doing the investigation, and by the end of this year, the House Democratic Caucus will make a decision. Whatever that decision is, I will respect.
Okay, great. And what's next on the horizon for you?
Well, so we have to make sure that the National Defense Authorization Act gets passed. There's a House version and a Senate version. And my district has a lot of aerospace companies, a lot of defense contractors. And this is a very important piece of legislation that not only is good for our economy, it also is going to make sure we continue to have a strong military and strong national defense.
Okay, great. Is there anything else that you want to add?
Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
In Focus, California, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.